Okay, hi. So thank you everyone again for taking the time to join today. Just for the recording, again, my name is Tony and I'm a member of the IARPC Secretariat. And we're here today to discuss IARPC, the Arctic Research Plan, and specifically how they relate to the systems team, marine ecosystems, coastal resilience, permafrost, terrestrial ecosystems, sea ice, and physical oceanography communities of practice. Um, so just before we dive in, wanted to give a little bit of context about IARPC. Many of you may be aware of IARPC's mission and function, but for anybody who is new or not familiar, IARPC is an interagency working group of the National Science and Technology Council. We are tasked with enhancing research in the Arctic by bringing together federal agencies to coordinate and enhance their work. We also facilitate conversations and build connections among federal agencies, researchers, Arctic communities, and others who live and work in the Arctic, both in the US and internationally. So you'll see all the logos here on the slide. To do this, we bring together leaders from 18 different agencies, departments, and offices from across the US federal government. We can go to the next slide. And we also run IARPC Collaborations, which is a web platform that facilitates collaborations between federal agencies and non-federal groups, researchers with interests in the Arctic region. So currently we have over 4,200 members spanning different disciplines and agencies, organizations, countries. And this is where we host a number of teams, including the team and communities who are hosting the webinar today. So you'll hear a little bit more from those co-leads here shortly. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So IARPC was created in 1984 under the Arctic Research and Policy Act, or ARPA, which called for a comprehensive national policy focused on research needs and objectives in the Arctic, which is a plan that IARPC is required to update every 5 years. So the work of IARPC and IARPC collaborations is organized around this National Arctic Research Plan, which outlines areas for collaboration among U.S. federal agencies and researchers. So in the past, IARPC has focused on sort of basic fundamental research necessary to understand Arctic processes. And in recent years, we've built on this understanding to tackle bigger, interdisciplinary scientific questions that we need to support a thriving Arctic ecosystem and Arctic communities. So we're currently implementing the 2022 to 2026 plan. And the reason we're having this meeting here today is we are seeking input on what the 2027 to 2031 plan should look like. So we're not going to go too much into detail on like the structure, our background of the Arctic Research Plan. We do have a recording of an information session we held back in September for a little bit more about IARPC and the Arctic Research Plan and the kind of more nitty-gritty of the update process. And I'll put that link in the chat. But today, our goal is to more have a discussion. So collect input and thoughts around topics related to Arctic systems interactions, which encompasses issues relevant to all our communities of practice here today. So again, marine ecosystems, coastal resilience, permafrost, terrestrial ecosystems, sea ice, physical oceanography. As we look to the next Arctic Research Plan, just wanted to give you a quick overview of what the process is going to look like. So on the 15th of November of this year, we closed the Federal Register notice in which we're using to solicit input on the next plan. But due to the government shutdown, this session had to be postponed, so we rescheduled it for today. So any input that is submitted during today's discussion will be equally considered for the next plan. The email, and I'll put this in the chat too, plan@iarpiccollaborations.org is also still active if, as a result of this listening session, you wish to submit some input. We just do ask that you do so before the end of December, because beginning in January, federal drafting teams will be assembled to consider all the public and federal input and actually put together that first draft of the plan. Once that plan's drafted, it's going to be reviewed and cleared at the interagency level and then re-released for another round of public input. This will likely be late spring, at which time, again, drafting teams will take that input, finalize the plan, hopefully to be released in early 2027. Timeline subject to change, but we'll communicate any updates as they are available. So the next slide is just like today's meeting, we had a couple of other Arctic Research Plan listening sessions that were rescheduled due to the government shutdown. So we've got one this Wednesday for the Community Resilience and Health team, one on Thursday for risk management and hazard mitigation. And then next week, we also have a town hall at AGU on Tuesday for anybody who will be there. And we can go to the next slide. So here are the kind of key questions that were in the Federal Register notice to consider when thinking about input for the next plan. We're going to return to these for the discussion portion of the agenda, but just wanted to share them here so you can start thinking, start that percolating. But we'll bring this slide back up before we start chatting as a group. And then we can go to the next slide. So just finally, if you're looking for more info about the development of the Arctic Research Plan or just have any questions, you can visit this IARPC website update page or email that same plan at iarpiccollaborations.org. And I'll put those both in the chat. But so I know this was kind of a high flyover. Wanted to see if there's any quick questions on any of that before we get into our team and community overviews. Okay. Not seeing any hands or anything in the chat. So with that, we are going to turn it over first to a couple of our systems team representatives, Hailong and Max, who are going to give us a quick overview on those team activities.
Hi everyone. My name is Hailong Wang. I'm an earth scientist at the Pacific Northwest National Lab. As Tony said, I will give a quick overview of the Arctic Systems collaboration team. Currently, we have five co-leads. So the overall key focus of this team is to enhance the ability to observe, understand, predict, and project the Arctic dynamic systems, and also their links to the entire Earth system. So some key activities in the past and some ongoing, we've been hosting or co-host, co-organize workshops, conference sessions, like typically AGU sessions, and also discussion panels focusing on a specific topic, and also joining review articles. And one of our colleagues also proposed that we probably can propose a journal of special issues focusing on Arctic systems. So as Tony mentioned, this year there's also an AGO town hall, as we also contribute to previous years, and also co-organizing science sessions. They were working with the modeling community of practice. We've been organizing some very nice series of discussion panels on key model biases as well received. And I believe the terrestrial ecosystem community of practice will talk about this workshop called Disturbance and Interaction Workshop. One of our colleagues helped co-organized. And for the ongoing, there are many other objectives related to atmosphere. Some of the two listed here are ongoing atmosphere topics. One is understanding the causes and the consequences of Arctic amplification, the amplified warming over the Arctic. The other is about connections to the Arctic changes to lower latitudes through like transport of heat moisture, air pollutants, and smoke, wildfire smokes by the atmospheric circulations. So those are ongoing efforts. Max will help introduce some topics on the ice sheet.
Yeah, so in the previous Arctic Research Plan ice sheet topics include understanding changes in Greenland ice sheet impacts, and the specific line item is improving ice sheet models for better prediction of sea level rise. And so I think within this listening session, a prompt for you all that I'd be curious to hear is, are there other ice sheet or land ice related topics that you think would be pertinent to put into the next research plan? say we want to get more granular about smaller ice masses or surface processes or specific processes. And in addition to that, on the ice sheet, land ice side of things, if there are other ideas that any of you all have for activities that might encompass some of these topics.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Up next, we have Christina, who is going to be speaking on behalf of the Coastal Resilience Leads.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Bonsall. I'm with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. My other co-leads on the Coastal Resilience team are Taze Jones with the Fish and Wildlife Service, Liz Walsh with the University of Cambridge, and Tom Ravens with the University of Alaska Anchorage. Our group focuses on coastal community responses to environmental change, community-based science, and science at the land-ocean interface. I like to think of our group as this point of interaction and intersection between what happens in the ocean, what happens in the land, and what happens with people. Some meetings that we're holding recently, perspectives from community-based ecosystem monitoring efforts. I think we have postponed this one until January. And then climate adaptations through nature-based solutions. We had a meeting on the Gravel to Gravel initiative. And we had a really good meeting on the Nunalik project, which is a community-based archaeology project in Quinnahock. And I know that this topic of coastal resilience has gained a lot of traction and attention in recent years. And I'm looking forward to hearing folks' input in how we can further it under the next plan. Thanks.
Thank you, Christina. And up next, we have Jackie with the Marine Ecosystems Community of Practice. And Jackie, if you're talking, I can't hear you on my end. Not yet. Jackie, would it be helpful if she's still here? Maybe she's jumping back in. Serena, maybe we can jump ahead for a moment. Wei, if you're ready from physical oceanography, maybe we can do that overview and come back when Jackie's able to reconnect.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Tony. So
Yeah.
I'm Wei Chen. I'm a physical oceanographer from UW and now at PMEL. So I'm one of the co-leads of the physical oceanography community of practice. So I think the overarching goal of this community's activities is to facilitate exchange of information and also encourage collaboration across disciplines on the physical oceanography of the Arctic Ocean. And we also emphasize its connection to other Earth system components, as well as connection to human dimensions. To achieve this goal, we kind of organize and facilitate monthly webinars. Often these webinars are in collaboration with other IRPIC teams, and also of each of the topics covered in a webinar is linked to the deliverables or objectives of the Arctic Research Plan. So on the right, we are just listing a few examples. So for example, we had a presentation on AMOC and its interactions with the Arctic sea ice system. This is in collaboration with the Modelers Community of Practice team, as well as the Arctic Systems priority area teams. The tsunami research and prediction presented by PMEL scientists was in collaboration with the risk management priority area teams. The SASE project is a NASA field program focusing on understanding the impact of ice melting on the upper ocean salinity and stratification. And then we also had advanced modeling session on how to model Arctic Ocean ice atmosphere interactions. So as you can see, these are just a few examples. These topics both are interdisciplinary and disciplinary. So often it's done with the help from Tony in this meeting today. And so right now the co-lead team has myself and then Jackie Kinney from the Naval Postgraduate School. We have a vacancy in the three-body co-lead team after Wilbert Wire and Gianluca Minigallo stepped down after years of invaluable service. So I'm going to put a link on the advertisement for this open role in the chat box. We would appreciate you help us spread the words. Thanks, Tony.
Okay,
Thank
Tony,
you,
can you
Wei.
hear me?
Yes, we can. So, Serena, if we could jump back a slide, we'll give Jackie the floor.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. It's the wonders of magic of the internet. Okay, hi, Jackie Grebmeyer. I'm a co-lead with Danielle Dixon from the North Pacific Research Board and Lyle Britt from NOAA's National Marine Fisheries Service. So the key foci of the marine ecosystems community of practice is to look at the underlying structure and function of the Arctic marine systems and their role both in the climate system and advancing predictive capabilities for environmental change. So if we look at describing the topics that we have, we really work towards having an interdisciplinary Arctic marine understanding of the marine ecosystem and the drivers of those changes related anywhere from climate to physical, chemical, and biological drivers. We share the data and we have both ongoing webinars as well as synthesis activities. We work also to develop an exchange with the data sets from observationalists to modelers to particularly start developing and continue to develop biophysical modeling to develop understanding of processes as well as potentially forecast near-term changes. We do have information about priority needs as far as the type of marine data and actually share and how to share collecting observations with that. As far as our meetings, we have monthly webinars as most of the other collaborative teams have. We usually are picking specific topics that are related to discussions that we've had within the community. We provide updates at these meetings on activities that are going on. We've also initiated an informal community coffee chat so that we could just have the community come on, have a cup of, basically talk about some interests that they have, news that they brought forward, even though we have these in our webinars. And then we also provide updates to the field programs, both of what is coming up, but also some highlights from activities, both nationally and internationally that have occurred during the year's field program. So that, we're interested in having input from the community on a variety of different topics related to the marine ecosystem to form synergies. So I hope you can join on our monthly calls. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Now I'm going to pass it over to John to speak about the permafrost community of practice.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Yeah, my name is John O'Donnell. I'm an ecologist with the National Park Service Arctic Inventory Monitoring Network, based in Anchorage, and I'm a federal co-lead of the Permafrost Community of Practice, along with Lauren Baldrick at the EPA, and let's see, Ben Jones at University of Alaska Fairbanks, and Kyle Arndt at the Woodwell Climate Research Center. So for permafrost, our key focus is permafrost impacts on infrastructure, climate systems, ecosystems, and hazards of permafrost thaw. And so our group has largely functioned as a hub for advertising a broad range of webinars and opportunities related to permafrost. So not just webinars that we put on, but webinars put on by the U.S. Permafrost Association, by the Permafrost Discovery Gateway, and by other groups. And so we try to funnel that information to our community. And so we've also held webinars on methane emissions, on rusting rivers in the Brooks Range, on permafrost hazards and mapping of permafrost thaw. Let's go to the next slide. So in thinking about the Arctic Research Plan, going forward, there's a number of key topics we think the permafrost community and interdisciplinary actions across groups could be focused on, and they include importance of tribal sovereignty, especially in terms of data, permafrost thaw impacts on health and infrastructure, so partly thinking about what is coming out of permafrost as it thaws in terms of chemical constituents and toxins and how that might be getting into water and the food web. And of course, carbon emissions, the permafrost carbon feedback. There's also a need for infrastructure improvements, including focus on renewable energy, healthcare, cyber infrastructure and security, and roads and airstrips, along with workforce and capacity building with respect to issues around permafrost thaw. So that's all I have. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, John. And up next, we have Angela from the Sea Ice Community of Practice.
Hey everyone, I'm Angela Bliss, and I'm based at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, and I'm one of the co-leaders of the Sea Ice Community of Practice. The main goals of the Sea Ice community are to enhance our understanding and improve predictions of the changing Arctic sea ice cover. We focus on monitoring the state of sea ice in the Arctic and its interaction with other components of the Earth system, including the ocean and atmosphere. For our activities, we host periodic community meetings on a variety of topics, including an annual meeting where we review recent observations and trends in the sea ice. And we do this meeting in the fall every year after the annual sea ice extent minimum in September. We cover topics on sea ice modeling and prediction and have an ongoing series of meetings on sediment transport in the sea ice ocean system that's done in collaboration with the physical oceanography and marine eco teams. The next meeting that we're planning for in January is in collaboration with Physical Oceanography Community of Practice, is on the topic of sea ice thickness. So at this meeting, we'll discuss advancements in availability of data products from satellite altimetry, modeled sea ice thickness products, and in situ observations. So we're looking forward to sharing that with you soon. So thanks.
Thank you, Angela. And finally, we've got Terrestrial Ecosystems. And Liz, I see that you are on if you'd be willing to share an overview for the community.
Yes, hi. Thanks so much. I'm Liz Hoy. I'm from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, where Angela is also, and I am a federal co-lead I am a co-lead for this Terrestrial Ecosystems team. My other co-leads are Elizabeth Powers from USGS, Daryl Yang from DOE, and also Caitlin Hanna, who's now at DOE but started as an IARPC fellow and has been a crucial member of our team as well. Our scope is really about developing a landscape scale understanding of the drivers and impacts of terrestrial ecosystem change. Like the other teams, we often have webinars and we partner with other teams to do this. This past year, we had a big effort for our team was a disturbance and interactions workshop, which we held in May in Anchorage, Alaska, where we looked at the impacts of terrestrial disturbance across the landscape. And it was a great opportunity for us to bring together scientists, local and indigenous community folks, decision makers, and land managers. And we addressed the deliverables that are listed here, but really those deliverables relate to Arctic modeling and ecosystems, how those changes are impacting people and wildlife, how to use remote sensing in making these measurements, what kind of synthesis products are being developed, and really just how to connect scientists and managers together. So our team is really trying to kind of focus in on some of that. Right now, we're doing a lot of work as a leadership part of the team to kind of write the workshop summary, and we plan to start hosting some additional webinars to kind of review some of the work that came out of that workshop. And I think that was most of what I wanted to share, and thank you for the time today.
Yes, thank you, Liz. And thank you to all of our co-leads who presented today, as well as who are leaders for our IARPC collaborations community. So now that we've heard just a little bit about the teams and communities that are hosting for today, we are now going to move into the discussion portion of our agenda. So we've got about 30 minutes to the top of the hour. And again, we're hoping to use the remainder of this time to chat with you all about things, topics, concerns, questions, what should our next Arctic research plan consider? So again, we pop back up on the screen so the key questions that were included in the Federal Register notice. So what are the critical Arctic issues and needs where federally funded science and technology research should provide knowledge to promote sound decision making? And what are examples of research questions that address these issues? So I'll pop those questions in the chat so that they're in there so we can take down the slide and see one another. But feel free if anybody does have questions, comments, input, we can use the chat. You can raise your hand, or you can just come off mute and offer up something to the group. And this could be maybe relevant to one specific community of practice or team that you heard from, or an issue, a cross-cutting issue that everybody can consider and weigh in on. But again, the remainder of the time is an opportunity to hear from you all things that we should consider for the next plan. And I do see we got a couple of comments in the chat. So one from Ralph, question, given these very broad scientific goals, e.g. understanding the factors driving Arctic amplification, what specific satellite as well as suborbital measurements are needed to further this work? Ralph, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more to that. And then Hailong, I see you put some response in the chat too. So I don't know if you wanted to speak to what you put in there.
Well, I could just say that making plans for making measurements usually takes a lot of time and money. And so there has to be a realistic connection between what we aim to do scientifically and what we can actually measure. So I just thought I'd highlight that as something that really belongs in a long-term plan like this. That was really my point.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. Yeah, I quickly put some response there, but just mean to say that although we mostly rely on models, but you know that we have also biases in the models. We do rely on observations like satellite measurements or suborbital measurements to constrain our models to understand those biases. But traditionally, we have been using those measurements I mentioned in the chat for model evaluation. But if you have suggestions for more advanced measurement sensors, active sensors, yeah, please provide us.
Well, yeah, okay. So let me make a point there, which is, models need to be tested critically, not just haphazardly. I mean, we make the measurements we can, but it's a research project to think hard about what critical measurements need to be made in order to really test the models. And I know, I mean, I'm from the measurement community, obviously. The modeling community will often, go off in their own direction and not necessarily anchor on the reality. And it requires a discussion with the measurement people to really understand what measurements can be made and which ones are actually going to test the model in serious ways. And in the Arctic, this is especially difficult. I mean, we've lost our Calypso LiDAR in the last couple of years, and so we don't even have that capability anymore. To take one example of something that I've worked with. But the point is much more generally here, just running off with models and not having those discussions with the measurement community and not actually coming up with specific ways of testing the models. And then, then sometime down the road, there'll be a big discovery that, oh, we missed all this because we never tested it.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you.
Yeah, and Larry, saw your hand went up. Is that in response to the current question, or is it something new?
It is. So thanks, Tony. Thanks, Ralph.
Yeah.
I think Ralph's making a good point. And I guess one thing I'd I guess first what I want to do is just start out by thanking everybody for continuing to focus upon how these interactions and collaborations and planning can move us forward into what still remains to be done. So that's really, really important. So looking back over the last 10 years, it really seems like the interaction between the modeling community and the observations community has really helped drive the science forward by asking the modeling community and having the modeling community identify and emphasize the deficiencies in the models and where more monitoring, more field research needs to be done to really provide the information, provide the data to further hone the algorithms that are used in the models and the processes that are included in the models. So I think that Ralph is really making a good point. So it's really important to have these, as Ralph just said, not have the modeling community going off of just focusing on things of interest, but actually providing guidance to the rest of the collaborative research community to define what really needs to be done. And I have one other point, but I'll come back to that when we finish this part of the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, is there any other kind of questions, comments on that particular line of inquiry?
Can I just chime in and maybe clarify or so
Sure.
Ralph, in the context of what you're asking there, obviously IARPC isn't an agency that's going to launch a satellite with a laser on it, right? But within the context of what IARPC can do and should do, are you suggesting that perhaps it'd be a good forum to work harder to get the modelers and the observationalists together to make sure that all parties are represented in planning those missions? Say right now, NASA's the decadal survey incubation is going on within NASA, but that's certainly very NASA centric, right? So that paraphrase a bit what you're getting at?
Yeah, well, I'd agree. I think having a forum for the discussion about what measurements need to be made and then advertising that to the agencies that could actually field some of those measurements, some of those instruments, that I think is critical. And it's not a simple thing to do. We do that in the aerosol community. We have a group called Aerocom Aerosat, and Aerocom are measurement people and Aerosat Aerocom are modelers and Aerosat is measurement people. And we meet once a year for a week and have open discussions about what needs to be done. And then we identify it. In the Arctic, it's an even bigger issue. So I'm just suggesting that would be a good thing too. So I guess we're very much in agreement here.
Thank you, Ralph, for the question. Anybody, any final thoughts on that front? Okay, the next thing I saw pop up was another comment in the chat from, is it Jana? Specifically for John in the permafrost leads, another topic for the Arctic Research Plan being permafrost hydrology. Again, just wanted to see if there was anything else you wanted to add on that front, or John, if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, this is Jana. I will just say that hydrology has been a big focus of the work being done at the University of Virginia by Matt Joel and Lena Cho and Howie Epstein and others. And from other work that I've been involved in, it just continues to come up as a real accelerator of permafrost thaw and something that, more understanding of both, the impacts and mitigation options. And that's something that some folks are focusing on, and it would really be great to see that highlighted in research plans. And I can throw a few specific questions in the chat that we've formulated around that.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. I think hydrology is a huge topic, both for driving permafrost thaw, for determining the mode and form of carbon emissions from terrestrial ecosystems, and also for changing watersheds, lateral movement of water and constituents into rivers and lakes and the ocean. So Yeah, I agree. It's a huge topic and should be part of the research plan.
Awesome. And thank you, Jenna, for popping those questions into the chat for us. Okay. Next thing I saw in the chat, Gay, I just wanted to make sure you got the info you were looking for. You had a question about who we were referring to when said decision makers on one of the earlier slides. So I know Serena chimed in there. As far as making decisions in the FRN, it was intended to be broad decisions at like federal, state, and community level. And then I think Liz was chiming in reference to the workshop specific slide about some of the folks that they had attend that session. But I see your hands up, so I'll let you add more color there.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate everybody putting in their thoughts on that. I would say that the topics from this end of things, and I live and work in the Bering Strait region on the coast, are anything that we should be thinking of food security, food safety impacts for the constituency all along the coast. And I'd just like to add that in for some of our marine issues, marine resources that are utilized both commercially and for non-commercial, right, subsistence purposes up and down the coast of Western Alaska, especially northern and Western Alaska from the Cusco region, YK Delta, right on up to Utqiagvik and beyond. You know, we are beset with things we never knew we had to worry about that are causing immediate concerns, such as harmful algal blooms. That's a big one for us now as that's being unfolded. And a transboundary, I don't know if this is the realm for that, but if we can improve transboundary communications for Western and Northern Alaska, especially the Bering Strait region when it comes to resource management, I know that's a big lift, but I don't want it to go, there is a humanitarian and ecological and stock assessment. There's lots of things that go. Right now, we don't have that ease of communications with a shared waterway and all that's in it. So that makes communications difficult, even if we're having trouble with something like a harmful algal bloom. I would add also disease. So we have concerns of avian influenza. It's already jumped into marine mammals, jumping into, it's already in our birds here in the region. It's in our land animals in the region, and other unknown diseases. And then the impacts of a reduced carrying capacity due to the loss of the whole thing with sea ice algae, so forth and so on. So I guess it would be nice also to sort of have a prediction for the coast, you know, with the best science we have, what should we anticipate in the next 5 to 10 years so that everyone along the coast can, it would help us zig and zag where we need to, right? If this looks like it's going to happen, we have to, residents on the coast have to make those changes, and we sure would like to hear recommendations. I know that I've just added about 4 things to your list, but that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gay. And wanted to open it up for our leads, any of our attendees, if there's anything that you wanted to add on that front, in terms of harmful algal blooms, transboundary communications, disease, reduced carrying capacity, and then Gay's last point about predictions with the best science we have for the coast for the next 5 to 10 years, just to hopefully recap, Gay, everything that you mentioned.
Yeah, this is Jackie. I would just say, I think that the points that Gabe brought up, I mean, what it requires is cross collaboration internationally with, I'm thinking of vessels and time series measurements. I mean, we do collections for the harmful algal blooms. We share them with different agencies in the US, but also being able to talk to our international collaborators, cross-ship use has been very successful for measuring, keeping up time series that are really important for making some of these major changes we're seeing with warming and sea ice retreats. So, you know, I know there's a question there what Gay meant by transboundary, and I know, Gay, you could say something about that. But part of that has to do with the political situation we're in now, obviously, because we are trying to keep up some transboundary with certain countries that we just an informal on a Chapman, on the ability not to share names and agencies, but it's very hard to do. During the Cold War, we worked with our Russian colleagues, and then, but now we can't work with our Russian colleagues. But you try to keep something up because eventually something will be resolved. But I think that transboundary issues because the Russians are fishing over in the Western Chukchi and we don't fish in our sides. There's a fishery migration issue. So I think we have to find ways to keep a dialogue, and science has always been the diplomatic way to do that. And we just have to keep moving forward on that. I see that as an important part. We will have exchanges during Arctic Science Summit Week when we're over in Denmark this year. I just got back from Japan and Korea. There with Chinese colleagues, but we not our Russian and some Russian colleagues. So there is, if you go to other countries, but somehow the dialogue is important. It's hard to do it government to government, but I think it's an important way to address what Gay's talking about on transboundary issue. I see it as cross-disciplinary importance to keeping science dialogue going.
And if I can just add, thank you, Jackie, very much. Good to see you. And I just don't want that conversation lost. If you're far from here, that conversation is something that's like, well, we, would be nice to know what's going on and it would be helpful. If you live here where you're in some of our communities are a quarter mile from the boundary, we worry about our constituents next to us, right? When we have a harmful algal bloom that is the worst ever described in the nation, how do we get that information over to our neighbors? Are they having something and they can't talk to us that might save lives? And I just don't want the importance, especially when we're talking about zoonotic diseases that people can get. I live with a velociraptor right here in my room. Can you grab him, please, before he chews something else? Anyway, I better leave it there. I've got a dog to go get. But know that the importance of that for food security, food safety, and the human health of all the people on both sides of the coast, both sides. Russia is our neighbor as well as our difficult person to talk with, but all the people that live on the coast are our neighbors in this very unique neighborhood, right? They're eating the same foods. They've got blood kin and things like that. So, and language. So we are sharing everything, the weather, the animals, the water. So yeah, thank you so much. Keep it up, Jackie. And Tony, don't let Russia just be the bad guy. We need to have real communications. It matters to the health and lives of people along Western Alaska. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gay. Thanks so much for joining and bringing up that point. It is hugely important. Is there anything else anyone away? Is this on the same topic?
Yes. Thanks, Jackie and Gay, for your comments on transboundary. The reason I raised that question is, yes, national boundary is one natural kind of definition of boundaries, but even within our own water, there's sometimes people talk about boundaries across different large marine ecosystems, species distribution shift and so on and so forth. That's probably more fine-grained, but I mean, I wonder also there are concerns or issues about shifting of boundaries that way, and transboundary issues. Thanks again. This is really, really important and interesting.
Thank you, Wei. Yeah, thank you for adding that layer as well. Want to just give another moment for any questions or comments on there.
Tony, there's a comment about AI.
Yes, I do see that one in the chat just before we get to that. Anne, I saw your hand go up, so I just wanted to see if that was on the current topic or if you wanted to introduce a new question or comment.
I just wanted to reiterate what Kay is saying. I would have wanted her to talk a little bit more about not only the international boundaries, but the actual, in particular, something like harmful algal blooms where we have this network and we're trying to come up with a a good way within our own jurisdictions to make sure we're communicating sufficiently when there is an alert. Okay, do you know what I'm talking about? We've been discussing this, an emergency alert. There's lots of tribal consortia that are doing fantastic jobs right now in doing this, but I'm doing this kind of all hazards research up on the North Slope Borough. So I'm working with Don Anderson on harmful algal blooms right now, trying to figure out what's going on up there and how we're going to get this message out. And risk communication is a huge issue. So I just want to reiterate what Gay was saying in a socio-ecological framework. Thanks, Gay.
Yeah, I think we can address that more offline in detail, but in a rough sense, when there's human health involved, like in the immediacy of a HAB, the network is the wrong place. The network is the wrong place. Human health, the human health agencies, like our hospitals and the state of Alaska Epidemiology and Department of Human Health, they are the ones that take over in a HAB situation. So you don't actually have to plan something out for a loose group of researchers. I'm a part of what you're talking about, but when it comes, having lived through what we did, it's really, you hand it off to the state of Alaska. Now there's things you can do for communications, but that is really based on each regional hub. And that's the way to do that, because there's no way an urban-based agency can know the intricacies of a region other than working closely, which the urban-based centers do anyway every day.
Yeah.
Short
I just want to make sure people on the call realize this is going on, and it's a real problem, making sure we are communicating across jurisdictions and at the state level and even at the local level. So thanks, Kay.
Yeah, thank you, Gay. Thank you, Anne. I think now, we'll go back to the chat. Thank you, Heilong, for re-raising that. There's another question in the chat from Andrew. Can someone on the IARPC leadership team speak to plans to harness AI for Arctic research and how these plans may consider the dual use of sparse observations and global coupled models to approximate and make predictions of the state of the Arctic? Who wanted to read that one out, offer it up to the group? Andrew, I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add on that front before we see if any of our leads or any other attendees have any comments, follow-up questions.
My only question is to know, is this an item in the IARPC plan, and what priority is it being given?
I can chime in quickly. We don't know exactly what's going to be in the next Arctic research plan. That will be up to the federal drafting teams, federal input, public input. I will say that AI, as you're aware, is a big priority for the current administration. So from my perspective, it's likely that it will be featured in the next Arctic research plan in some form, but we don't know exactly what that will be yet.
Yeah, the only thing, this is Jackie, I was going to add is that there was a whole session on this with the recent Polar Research Board, because they took this on as a priority topic, and I think it would be very valuable to keep our fingers on the pulse of what came out, because that was a community-led aspect. So I think with AI, I know that AI is being done in various aspects in the marine ecosystem part. I personally haven't used it that much, except I run into it every day and every time I get on Google. But I would say, it is a growing capability. And I think but I would just point to that Polar Research Board report that should be coming out at some time early in the year.
Thanks, Jackie. Joe, Joe, go ahead. So you came off mute.
Yeah, thank you. I think Andrew brought up a very important question. I think these days we have like a larger data-driven machine learning models and also hybrid models, including like a dynamic core coupled with learner physics. But all these models are trained using EIA5 data, and they inherit the uncertainties of the data in the polar region. So far, I think most published work focus on evaluation in the or the lower latitudes, tropics or mid latitudes. We don't fully understand the strengths and the limitations of these models in the polar region. I think model evaluation, evaluation of these like machine learning based models along with the traditional numerical models is an important topic. In addition, I think machine learning methods can also be used for prediction, like a CIS prediction, and also prediction of extreme events, including like heat waves or wildfires. As Serena mentioned earlier, we do not know the funding landscape yet, but it is important to raise the awareness of this issue. Thank you.
Thanks all. Is there any other questions, comments, follow-up?
Just want to point out, we recently had IRPIC had a webinar discussion topic on the use of AI machine learning over the Arctic. But this can be, we could have a follow-up discussion or a panel discussion on this issue. It's very important. It cannot avoid for the next 5 years. Thank you, Andrew. You got great ideas. Often just provide the input and hopefully we'll get into the next plan.
Yeah, and I think even now, while it's not so explicitly written into the current plan, I know some IARPA teams and communities are thinking about trying to conceptualize some meeting topics relevant to AI and how it intersects with their work. But Andrea, it is a good point of just like, will we see it kind of called out more specifically with more of a focus in the draft of the next plan, and remains to be seen. But that's important why we have sessions like today where this will be captured in the formal input that goes to the drafting teams. One thing I did want to return to, Larry, I know when you chimed in earlier, you'd said you had another point. So I had just written down to return and see if there was anything you wanted to add or ask.
That's kind of you, Tony, but actually somebody else has already picked it up, so I don't think we need to go back to that. So thank you very much. I'll say it was covered by Jana, so thanks for that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Larry. Anne, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah. So I just wanted to sort of reiterate, Jana had actually put in the chat a couple of social science questions, which I think are extremely important because otherwise, you wind up with some communities being deluged with researchers, sometimes doing duplicative research, and just overwhelming the community. I mean, research fatigue is a real thing. And the end result of all this nonsense is not really anything that helps the community. I mean, it's just it never becomes practical. I mean, some of it's very good science and it's interesting from a scientific point of view, but um, you know, we need to think about ways to go beyond that with the science, I think. And people really do need to consider that. And the other thing she brought up was how to say sustain long-term partnerships between indigenous organizations and researchers, agencies. And that's critical too, because if you have to start from square one every time, you don't get very far. So those are the two things that I think people really need to think about.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. Thank you for calling that to attention. And yeah, for folks, it's Jana's comment that's in the chat, but thank you for reiterating those questions. And Gay, did you have something to add to that as well?
Yes. I would say for this question of long-term, has the science world in the decision-making sense or in the leadership agency sense looked at the structure of Western and Northern Alaska in that we are 6 hub communities that are, so you start, right? If you go Western Alaska, you've got Eastern Aleutians, Pribilofs, Unalaska is their hub. Bristol Bay, Dillingham's their hub. the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Bethel's the hub, Bering Strait region, Nome, Kotzebue for Northwest Arctic, and Utqiagvik for North Slope Borough. I was just dealing this morning with some nice researchers who are trying to figure out how they can do work and things like that. It really got me thinking, has the science leadership thought about the 6 hub communities? Because I added it all up, and the hub communities, we are dealing with on a daily basis the issues and warp and weave of not only our public, but 140 tribes if you're dealing with the hub communities. And I just wonder, sometimes science seems nowadays so urban based, far away. And has anyone thought about, you don't physically, it'd be lovely to physically have more resources here, but working in the hubs as opposed to maybe you need to work with a community all the time, but what is your long-term outreach, or what is your long-term research objective, and what does success, I say this again, what does success look like? Is it just for your project? Is it for the betterment? Is it for, there's so many layers to that question, but I would really recommend people sort of look at how the structure of communication, funding, and resources are in those hub communities, because that way you'd maximize. I see people that come out and they're from far away, like Alabama or New Jersey or something, and they plop down here as young people, and they really don't understand, and nor should they, right? Say they're studying the genetics of starfish, something like that. But how do we help them? How do we get the science and get the communications and get the research done most effectively? And I would say that would be not taken away from the communities. I'm all for talking to the tribes, number one. But look at these hub communities. Is that a good way, perhaps, to break down into chunks the science, the efforts, and let the whole regional hub sort of bring people up to speed that are making decisions or that are sending people out here, or be more of that decision-making process, and or educating people on how rural Western Alaska functions. And we do function quite well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gay. And yeah, just for folks' awareness, we are at the top of the hour, but I can stay on and we can keep the conversation going. Just wanted to give everybody a time check, but I'll pass it over to Anne.
Yeah, so Gay has some very good points. I know in the North Slope recently, we've been trying to work with the regional tribal organization um, to kind of, as well as some of the villages, because in many cases, working with a local tribe becomes, it's overwhelming. I mean, if you have a village of 100 people, maybe half of them are going to be kids. So now you have 50 adults, some of whom are elders, and there's a lot of jobs. And the more load you put on them. I mean, there's communities where I think there's practically been as many researchers running around as there were adult residents, which is ridiculous. It's burdensome. So that's one possibility. But I think that working with the regional as Gay suggested, maybe working with the regional hub. And then, it may be that then pick a particular village to work with. I mean, one of the projects that I'm on now, we actually had to shrink it when NSF shrank our budget. But, we got picked out several villages, and now it's down to one. But, and you would on the North Slope, if you're trying to do something coastal, you're not going to be working with Anaktuvik Pass. You're not going to be working with Otkasuk. You're not going to be probably working with Nlixit, although, depends. So you have to pick and choose. If you want to study, I don't know, caribou migration, AKP is where you want to go. So, you need to talk to people who know that and kind of try to do it in a way that's not burdensome and that also hooks you up with people that you really need to talk to, because there's people who know an awful lot about many of the things that you're interested in. Maybe not starfish genetics, though.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah, and it looks like Gay maybe had to jump to another meeting, but I appreciate her raising this line in
Yeah.
discussion and for your thoughts. Fantastic. Yeah, it looks like people are hopping off as we're over. We're open for any final questions or comments. I do want to thank everybody for joining and for patience as we rescheduled this meeting, but very happy to see you all today.
Thank you, Tony, for organizing this.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to our team leads for presenting.
All right.
Awesome. Well, have a great week, everybody. Thanks again for being here. And thanks for all the input.
Have a good holiday. Bye.
Thanks.